dream very differently, but others dream very similarly. So a ton of people around the world see faces in their dreams. So they see the figure and the face of somebody maybe they know, maybe it's a stranger. But then other people, I was reading, they see faceless people. And while they're dreaming, the faceless people don't seem abnormal, and they also can recognize who it is. Let's say they're dreaming about their mom. Their mom would have no face, but they would still know it was their mom, because I was reading online that the person dreaming recognizes the soul of the person they're dreaming about. So even though there's like 10 faceless people in the row, they can be like, oh, that's my best friend Sarah. That's my teacher, Mr. Loodle. Loodle? Mr. Loodle. What? But they can recognize people even though there's no face on their body, but that's like more on the rare side. Usually people do see faces. I know myself personally, I always see faces of people I'm dreaming about, and I think like 99% of the time it's people that I know in my real life, friends, family, even like just acquaintances or people that I've seen once in my life. They could just appear in my dream. But there are also the faces that everyone sees, and there's actually a really scary case that I'm going to be talking about. You guys might have heard of this before. It's kind of like a creepypasta, but a lot of people are saying it's real. I don't know for sure if it's real, but it sounds pretty real. But it could just be a scary story. I don't know. But basically, people are saying that thousands of people around the world are dreaming about this man. I'll put his picture here, but apparently so many people have seen this man in their dreams. But we're gonna get to him in a second. The other faces that a ton of people dream about are like very average faces. So if you took like the average female face from around the world, people would like dream about that. Or if you took the average face of, you know, men around the world, people would dream about that. Or if you go to different, you know, countries and blend everyone's faces together, that's sort of the people that appear in everyone's dreams. It's like a general blended face, if that makes sense to you. And it's sort of just when you're dreaming and your brain doesn't make like a definite person, it sort of just blends everybody that you've seen together into one face, which is kind of like creepy if you think about it. It's so weird because after I film this video, and let's say I have a dream tonight, I feel like subconsciously I'm gonna be thinking about this and trying to find the person in my dream, or hopefully not this man, because this man is really freaky. So let's get into the story about this guy. In January of 2006 in New York, the patient of a well-known psychiatrist drew the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. So there's this patient of a psychiatrist, she goes in for her appointment, and you know when you're in there for therapy, you're kind of talking about your life, what's been bothering you, just everything. And she sits down and she's like, hey, you know what? This really weird man keeps appearing in my dreams. I don't know where he came from, but he's always there. So the psychiatrist told her to draw the face of this man she's been seeing, and that's where this picture comes in, because this is the exact picture that she drew. So what happened next was the psychiatrist kept that portrait on her desk to analyze for the next week or so. So every patient that came in to see her would be sitting there talking, and they would notice this portrait on her desk and they'd be like, hey, where's that picture from? I recognize it. And the psychiatrist would show the patients, and the patients would all be like, hey, that guy's in my dream. All of these patients that are recognizing this man have all said they've never seen him in real life. They've never seen this man in person in front of them, only in their dreams. And all the patients refer to this guy right here as this man. This man. There's literally a site that I'm on right now that I'm kind of looking at all this information from, and the site is called thisman.org. Like, it's really creepy. So if you guys want to look more into it after this video, go to thisman.org. It's creepy. Like, this is literally the picture on it, so that's always cool. So since this has all been made public, a lot of people have been coming forward on the internet who have drawn a man in their dreams who look very similar to this man. So I'm going to show you some of those drawings right now. So this is the very first one, and I love how they just keep making that thick eyebrow. Like, that is so prominent. So we're going to go through them really quickly, but they're all just like sketches from people. And yeah, those eyebrows, man. It's almost like he's making a smirking expression. Like, you can't really tell what he's thinking, which makes it even freakier. This next one, he's kind of turned to the side, you know. This next one, he is pretty shadowed, and you can actually see more of his body, not just his face, which we haven't seen yet. This next one is really, really detailed. You can see like his cheekbones, his chin is really prominent. And then I don't know who did this one, but someone made him look very human-like, so I'll show this now. This is the freakiest one of them all. Imagine there's a guy out there that actually looks like this and he's offended by this video. I'm so sorry. Now, most people say that when he appears in their dreams, he's given them some sort of strange advice. So he'll tell them to do things that aren't really usual, if that makes sense. And people are almost drawn to him. Like, there's this one dream from a lady, and she says, I fell in love with him from the very first time I saw him in my dreams. Even though, if I think about it, I must admit he's really ugly. Poor guy. And yet, each and every time I dream about him, he sweeps me off my feet with his romantic gestures and sweet words. He buys me flowers, jewelry, he takes me out to dinner or to the beach to watch the sunset. So when this lady wakes up, she knows she's not attracted to him in real life or when she thinks about his face, but in her dreams, somehow she's just mysteriously attracted. Here's another dream about him. The first time I had a dream about this man, I was having a hard time at work. I had a dream about getting lost in a huge and deserted shopping mall. Suddenly, this man appeared and I started running away from him. He chased after me for what seemed like an hour until I found myself against a wall. He smiled at me and showed me the way out, and then I woke up. And ever since that night, this man has appeared in all of my dreams, and he always gives me directions of how to get out of the dream and wake up. So like I said, this man is always telling people to do things. I dreamt about this man. He was Brazilian and very handsome. He was a school teacher type with 6 fingers on his right hand. He said that if the US had a nuclear disaster, to go north. See, he's giving people instructions and advice and like telling the future, and it's just really strange. Now, there are some theories about why people could be all having this dream about this man. There's something called the dream imitation theory, and it's basically saying that since this man's face has been made public to everybody, people have started dreaming about him after they've seen this face. Because your brain sees it, recognizes it, and sort of keeps it in your memory, so you start dreaming about him after you've seen the picture. You know what I mean? So you haven't dreamt about him before the picture, but once you've seen it, then you do. By the way, sorry guys. I hope this doesn't make you dream about him. Oh my god, imagine. And then the other theory is that he's sort of like the average face of a man that everybody sees, like I talked about before. So people think that could be him, that they've all seen. But anyways, I just thought that whole thing was really interesting. I did look at other sites and some people said it's total, like it's just made up. So who knows, but let me know down below if you have seen this man before, because if a ton of you say yes, then maybe it is real. And I hope I don't dream about him tonight. We're gonna get into the most common dreams in the world. Make sure to tell me down in the comments which ones you have had before. The first one is about teeth falling out. I have personally had a dream like this before. I remember I was riding a bike down the road. Suddenly I had to stop because like a squirrel or something ran in front of me. And when I stopped, my face hit the handlebars and I literally knocked out all of my teeth. All of my teeth were just all over the road. I also know friends who have had dreams like this. And there are a few meanings behind this dream. The first one is that it can reflect your anxieties about your appearance, or it can stem from a sense of powerlessness. Basically, people say that you have these dreams when you're having self-confidence issues. I don't know how much I believe this whole like meanings behind dreams. I mean, a lot of them make sense, but kind of decide for yourself if these are accurate descriptions or not. The next dream is about being chased, which I know like all of you guys have all must have had these dreams. I've mentioned this before, but when I was a kid, I had this constant dream, like almost every single night, of a man with a flute chasing me in my house. He was literally playing a flute while coming after me, and I just had that dream over and over again. And I feel like just in general, like every other night, something will be following me. And the meaning behind this is kind of obvious. People say that it means you're running away from something that's happening in your life. Something that might be causing you fear or anxiety. Maybe you're avoiding a particular issue. And for me, that somewhat makes sense because when I was having that guy with the flute dream, I was at the age where like it was at the peak of my anxiety. Like I was anxious anxious all the time. So I mean, that could have been coming out of my dreams. The next dream is kind of funny. It's when you're unable to find a toilet. I don't think I've ever been unable to find a toilet in a dream. I mean, I've had dreams where I was peeing myself, or like where I was actually peeing in a toilet, and then you wake up from your dream and you're like, oh my gosh, I really have to pee. But I've always been able to find one in my dreams. But it does say here that having trouble finding a toilet means that you may be finding it difficult to express your needs in a certain situation. It says you may feel that you're lacking time for your personal issues and need for more privacy, self-care, or self-expression. Now, I think this is just going a bit too deep, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if not finding a toilet really means these things, but you know, take it as you will. The next dream is being naked in public, and I know a lot of people that have had these dreams. I personally haven't, but my friend told me once that she had a dream where she showed up to school and was walking through the hallways and then realized that everyone was staring and laughing at her. When she looked down, she wasn't wearing any clothes. Which, you know, if that was real life, that would really suck. I mean, like, I've walked out of the house with no shoes on before. I've left the house without a coat, without my backpack, but never in real life have I ever left with no clothing. If that ever happens, that means I have finally lost my mind. Because, I mean, I'm close, but like, I'm not there just yet. But apparently the symbol for this dream means that you're not able to find yourself. It also says that you have a feeling of uncertainty or you're being wrongly accused. I don't really know how wrongly accused and being naked adds up. How do they coincide? How do they make sense together? The next dream is being unprepared for an exam or taking a test. I have had many dreams where I was taking a test because I was nervous for a test the next day. I was worried if I didn't study enough. I feel like back when I was in high school, I just had school dreams a lot, just because that's where most of my anxiety stemmed from. So it says at least 1 in every 5 people will experience an exam dream in their lives. So who is that from here? Comment down below. Exam dreams are a reflection of your lack of confidence and inability to advance to the next stage in life. I don't think I was worried about my next stage in life. I think I was just worried to pass the test, you know what I mean? I just wanted to get over 70%. That's all I wanted. Who cares about future life when you have a science exam the next day? The next dream is about flying, which I think like everyone should have had before. I know my grandma used to tell me when she was a kid that she would always have these dreams where she was being chased by a monster, and as she was running she kept jumping in the air trying to fly, and every time she wasn't able to, it took her like literally like 8 times jumping in the air before she'd actually fly away from the monster. So I always found that interesting to hear when I was a kid. I've had dreams where I've like flown off cliffs, or I was standing on the top of my house and decided to like fly over my neighborhood. I don't think I've ever had any negative flying dreams, because the symbolism is that like it means your life is out of control, or that something is stopping you from moving on to the next step in your life. And I just think personally that I was just having fun. Like, Dream Jess just wanted to go flying, that's all. And then the opposite of that is a dream about falling, which I've had as well. And it's interesting because it says that some people enjoy falling dreams and some people don't. And the ones that do enjoy falling dreams, it suggests that you are not afraid of changes, which is really, really good. But it's also strange, like, why do you enjoy falling? That's a scary feeling. And the people who don't enjoy falling, it signifies insecurity and anxiety about a situation. I feel like a lot of these dreams have to do with anxiety, because before you go to bed and you're thinking about a ton of stuff, those sort of anxious thoughts can just creep into your dreams. The next one is actually interesting because I just had this dream like 2 nights ago. It's being in an out of control vehicle. So in reality, like out of dreams, I'm actually really scared of being in like planes, boats, trains, cars, anything that I'm not in control of. I hate. Like, if I'm not driving in a car, I'm gonna be just sick and like nervous. I just want to be on the ground, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want, we were given 2 legs, I just want to walk with them. The other night I had this dream that my mom was driving, I was in the passenger seat, and for some reason the brakes on the car weren't working. So every time we come up to like an intersection with cars, she'd try to press on the brakes and the car would just keep going through the intersection, and we never got hit by anything, but like cars would be swerving around us, and like we were in the car for, it felt like an entire night of me sleeping, and she had to just go around things without using any brakes, and the car kept getting faster and faster, and it was terrifying. It says dreams of cars represent our drive in life and the direction we are taking. Drive in life. At this stage in your life, you may feel like you are off track and need to get back on the road to keep going. I feel like some of these are really cheesy, but I mean, they do kind of make sense. The last one I've actually dreamed about as well, like really recently. It's finding an unused room. I had this dream where I was with my boyfriend Ty, and we went to this like abandoned house. So we opened the door to this abandoned house, and there was this large empty room. And at the very back of the room, there was another door. And then when you open that door, there was another big empty room, and like it kept going. Like it was this endless dream of opening doors and just seeing just an empty room. And then at the very, very last room, there was like, I don't know, 50 rooms or something. In the very last empty room, there was this projector, and it was playing this movie trailer on the back of the wall. I don't even know what movie it was for. It was some action movie, but it was like we went through all of these doors and rooms in this abandoned house just to see a movie trailer. Like, what a waste of time. But it says if you learn of a new room in your dreams, it denotes new outlooks and abilities that you have realized about yourself. If the room is white, it means you are ready to make a new beginning in your life. I feel like a fortune teller or something. Why am I doing this video? Before I end this video, I wanted to tell you guys about this funny dream. Actually, it wasn't even funny. It was very frustrating. I had this dream the other night, and it was about Ty, my boyfriend. Basically, my family and friends and Ty, we were all stuck in this like square room. We couldn't get out. There was no doors, no windows. We were just in this square room. And for some reason, we're all sitting in a circle in this room. And placed in front of us is a box. So in front of each person in this circle, there is a box. And then, out of nowhere, this little guy appears in the middle of the room, and he's like,
okay guys, here's how it's gonna go. Each of you have to get into your assigned box, or the ceiling will collapse.
It was like something out of Saw. And then he just disappeared. So we're sitting there in our circle, and suddenly the ceiling starts coming down really, really slowly. So we're like, okay, everybody get into your assigned box, and I guess we'll be saved. So every single person, including me, we get into our little box in front of our chair, but then Ty for some reason is off doing his own thing. He can't find his box. He's walking around, he's knocking on the walls, he's singing songs. He's just like not getting into his box. So everyone was like, Ty, like what are you doing? The ceiling's coming down, we're all gonna die. And he's like,
I can't find my box. I can't find my box.
And we're like, Ty, it's like right here. Like we're all pointing to it, and he can't find it. And then the ceiling just collapses on us. That was my dream. I guess it wasn't really funny. I mean, it was a little dark. But like, Ty, you didn't get in your box. Okay, so this first story is called They Met Michael in a Dream. This girl tells a story about how when she was young, she always had these really bizarre dreams where she had this friend named Michael. He was a young boy, a few years older than her, and they always played games and had fun. Now, when she went and told her parents, they didn't really seem to care much until she began to describe him. She told them what Michael looked like. Now, what really shocked her parents is that Michael had the same name and appearance of her uncle who had died in a boating accident when he was just a child. Now, his death devastated her grandparents, and so her family never displayed any photos of him. And this really freaked out this girl's mom because she had never met him, she had never seen photos of him, so how was she describing him perfectly? After a couple weeks, her family decided to light some candles and prayed in an attempt to exorcise him. But when she went to bed that night, she had a dream where a very serious Michael offered her some candy. Apparently it looked like a red jawbreaker, and he kept insisting over and over again in her dream that she takes this candy and eats it. But seeing him looking so serious really scared her because the past while he had been so happy and playful and excited, and now he was holding this candy in her dream looking really freaky and really serious. So she declined his offer over and over again. And the last thing she remembers before waking up is seeing how sad he looked. And apparently that was the last time she ever saw Michael in her dreams. And when she told her mom what happened about him trying to offer her candy, the mom was super relieved and told the girl that he was trying to take over her body, and if she had accepted that candy, it would not have been good. So yeah, that's the end of that story, but this girl is just saying be warned if Michael or something else appears in your dream and offers you candy, don't accept it. Alright, this next story is called Got not your feet, and it freaks me out so much because whenever I'm sleeping, I'm always under the covers. Like I always make sure my legs don't stick out, my toes don't stick out. I don't want the monsters getting me. So this story just gives me the heebie-jeebies. So this story is told by a woman, and the night that this happened, her husband was sleeping beside her, and she had her bare feet sticking out of the blankets. Suddenly, she felt something grab her big toe, and she said it wasn't painful, it wasn't holding it really tightly, it was almost just like gently holding on to her big toe. So she decided not to look down, and instead she just sort of pulled the covers over her head, and she says it took about 5 minutes until whatever the thing was to let go of her foot. She made sure not to say anything to her husband because she didn't want to freak him out in any way, but 2 nights later it happened again. This time she was dead asleep, and the feeling on her foot woke her up immediately. Again, she was so freaked out, and this time she decided that she would actually look to see if anything was there, and when she looked down, she couldn't see anything. It was just still gripping her foot, so she whispered, "Hey, can you let go of that, please?" And a few seconds later, it let go. The next day, she actually decided to tell her husband, and he kind of just laughed it off. He said if it grabs her foot again, to wake him up. So a week later, it grabbed hold of her foot again during the night. So she woke him up, and he looked around, couldn't see anything, but she could tell that he was creeped out a little bit. And a few days later, he woke up her in the middle of the night. He was shaking like a leaf, and when she asked him what was wrong, he said,
"Honey, it's got my foot."
And that's how this story ends. It freaks me out so much. I don't know why, but just Alright, and the last story is called The Figure in the Doorway. This is about a guy who talks about a time in his life when he was 12 and he was suddenly woken up in the middle of the night. His door, which was usually closed at night, was wide open and he could feel someone glaring at him. He looked up to see a tall man right outside his room looking towards him. This thing seemed really angry and it just stood there and continued to stare at him. And he sort of just assumed that maybe it was his dad because his dad was the only other male in the house. But it was weird because his dad was really short and this thing was really tall, but he thought, you know what, it's probably my dad. So he called out to him and asked him what was wrong, but there was no answer. The thing just continued standing there. So he got so scared that he pulled the covers over his head and began praying. After a while, he pulled the covers down and saw that the figure was no longer there, so he quickly got out of bed and locked his bedroom door. The next day, he went to his dad and asked him why he was standing in his doorway all night staring at him, and his dad had no idea what he was talking about. So it says he chalked it up as either 1, his dad was sleepwalking, which he had never done in his life, 2, he was dreaming and somehow locked the door, and number 3, someone else came into their house but didn't steal anything from them. So maybe it was like someone who like broke in but then like left after. But he does think that it was probably some sort of ghost or spirit, which is really, really creepy. Anyways, so guys, those are the 3 stories that I'd be telling you today, and if anything creepy has happened to you in the night, definitely comment down below. I have been having a reoccurring dream, and I haven't had reoccurring dreams since I was a little kid. I think I have told you guys about a couple of the reoccurring dreams that I used to have. One was that old scary man that played the flute, and I had this constant dream that he was showing up in my house and luring little kids into a basement by playing the flute. It's like the weirdest and creepiest dream. I probably had it when I was like 10, and I have no idea how my 10-year-old brain came up with that or where I got that idea from. And then I had this other recurring dream where I would get on this roller coaster. It was in the middle of a forest. And first of all, I hate roller coasters, so that's why this was such a nightmare. And I'd get on this roller coaster and it would take me through this forest. It would go through loops and like hills and stuff. And at the very end of this forest, there was this really steep cliff. And the roller coaster tracks would just stop at this cliff. So I would be going down this roller coaster and I'd see the end of it. And right as I was going off the cliff, I would wake up. And I had that dream so often. And then finally they just stopped. And as an adult now, I haven't had the same dream every night in a very long time. Yes, I have weird dreams, but I don't usually have reoccurring dreams. And what freaks me out is that I've always heard that if you see someone's face in your dream, it means that you've seen them before, whether that's in person or on TV or in pictures, because apparently your mind can't create a person's face or a person if they don't exist in this world. world. I don't really know how true that is, but I've always heard that. So these reoccurring dreams that I've been having the past week always has this little boy in them. Now I'm gonna try my best to go on to Google Images and try and find a boy that best resembles the boy that's in my dream. So I'm gonna put it on the screen, and no, that's not literally him, but that's the closest face and body type and just boy that I could find online. And what's so weird is that this boy is like in vintage clothing. He's not dressed like we are dressed today. I don't know if he would have been from like the 20s, 30s, 40s. I'm really not sure. I'm assuming somewhere in there. But in my dream, he's actually black and white, and everything else in my dream is like in color. And the other thing that's weird is that I heard you can't dream in color, but I do. I have my entire life. So I don't know if there's something just wrong with my brain, but I don't dream in black and white. I dream in color. It's just this boy, whenever he appears in my dream, he's in black and white. It's like he literally stepped out of an old photograph. So my dream started off where I was in a hotel lobby and I was checking into a hotel room. And so I get my key, I walk up to my room, and for some reason I had bought this giant suite. So it wasn't like a tiny little room that I would typically get if I was going to hotels. It was like a really expensive, like $1,000 suite, which in real life I would never get something like that because, I mean, personally, it's a waste of money. I don't have that kind of money. But apparently Dream Jess has that kind of money. So I walk up to my room, and it's the only room on this floor because it's so big. And they do that in real life. Like, they put the biggest, like, giant hotel rooms on the top floors, I believe, because they take up like an entire floor. So I get to my floor, I walk up to this door. It's this huge wooden door. It looks very fancy. I put my key in, I walk inside, and it's just gorgeous. There's like glass and porcelain and chandeliers and marble floors, and it's just really beautiful. And for some reason, I'm at this hotel by myself. I don't know why I'm there by myself. I don't know what my goal or why I'm there. You know what I mean? In your dream, it just doesn't explain those type of things. So I'm walking through all the rooms, kind of giving myself a tour. And this part is going to be so hard to explain because I feel like when you're dreaming it, it makes sense, but maybe when you're explaining it, it doesn't. But I realized that I had to go to the washroom. And the way this house is laid out is there's like a washroom, a small hallway, and a giant closet. So I went into this washroom to pee. And I don't know if you guys do this, but whenever I'm home alone or in a place by myself, I don't bother closing the door because it's like no one can see you anyway, so what's the point? So I go in, I sit on the toilet. I know this is like so TMI, I don't know why I dreamed this, but I'm sitting on the toilet and I look down this hallway and I see this closet door. And while I'm peeing, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go check that out after I'm done peeing. Like, I'm just sort of scoping out the place while I'm sitting there. So as I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm looking down the hall, and suddenly the doorknob of the closet starts to like shake and it begins to turn. And I'm like, wait, am I just seeing things? Like, what is going on here? And suddenly the door starts to slowly open and I can just see like darkness inside the closet because the closet light's not on. And so it's slowly opening and opening, and finally it's halfway through and I start to see a figure in the closet. And in real life, I would like run out of the hotel room, but Dream Jess just wanted to sit there and watch what was going on. So finally the closet door fully opens, and sitting on a little stool at the back of the closet staring at me is this boy. He's sitting with like his knees up, he's like, his arms are like this, and he's just sitting on a stool like staring at me. Like I said, he's in black and white, he's dressed in like those old clothing, and he's just sitting there and he looks really, really sad. And so I was like, hello? Like, I thought in my dream that maybe he was there in the hotel previously and his parents left without him. I thought he was a legit boy just like sitting in the closet scared, maybe lost or wondering where his family was. So I get up and I start walking towards him, and the closer that I get to him, I realize that his eyes aren't open. It's weird because in my dream I thought that his eyes were open, but when I got closer, his eyes were closed and he was sort of leaning against the back of the closet with his eyes closed, not moving. And I get right up to him, and I don't know why I did this in the dream, but I closed the door to the closet. And Dream Jess was like, well, I better not disturb him. He looks like he's sleeping. He looks like he doesn't want to be bothered. And so I get all my stuff together and I go out like shopping or doing something. I don't really know what I was doing, but I come back to the hotel and I go to sleep. And I like completely forget about this boy, don't really worry about it. The next morning I wake up and I go and use the washroom again. And once again, I don't close the door. And while I'm sitting there, again, the closet starts to like open and it reveals this boy, and he's just like lying back, leaning against the back of the closet. And so I get up again, I walk up, still see that he's just like, I assume sleeping, and I close the closet door. Then once again, I go about my day, and when I come back to the hotel, I'm walking through the lobby, and there's like police officers and like ambulances and like caution tape everywhere. And the lady at the front desk walks up to me and she's like, I'm so sorry, but don't go into your room. And I was like, what do you mean don't go into my room? And she's like, they found a boy in the closet. And it was weird because I was like, oh yeah, I know, he was there. Like, he's just sleeping. Like, he just like hangs out in there. It was like I didn't realize anything was wrong. And she was like, no, like we found his body. We don't know how long he was in there for. I'm so sorry, but you can't go back into your room. And then the lady at the front desk told the police that I'd seen him there previously and didn't report it. So then like they started questioning me and they thought that I was the suspect who actually like did that to the boy, when meanwhile I had just seen the aftermath and thought he was alive and like just sleeping. I don't know what went through my mind, guys. But basically, I woke up in real life from that dream and I sat up in bed and I was like, why wouldn't I report a little boy sitting in a closet? It's like when you're dreaming, you don't have any logic. So I remember just feeling really weird that whole day after dreaming that, and I kept seeing this little boy like in my mind. And then that night when I went to bed, I had the exact same dream about that hotel, about the closet, about seeing that little boy in there. It was the exact same dream. Except in the dream, the second time I saw the boy in the closet, he actually like stood up, still with his eyes closed like he was sleeping, and started walking towards me. That was the only thing that was different that second night when I had the dream. And so when I woke up in real life, I have to say in real life because in the dream I was waking up in the hotel. But when I woke up in real life, I was feeling even more creeped out because I don't really have reoccurring dreams and I don't know what it means. I should probably call my sister Mandy and ask her, to be honest, because she has like dreams about spirits and like she has reoccurring dreams and really weird stuff going on. I think she honestly has some psychic abilities and she's talked to you guys about that before, but I feel like if I called her and told her about this dream, she'd like have all this knowledge about what it means. But anyways, I won't bother her. She's probably working. So this is when things start getting even weirder. So the third day of me having this dream with this boy in it was slightly different. So it was the same sort of premise, except it didn't take place at a hotel. It took place at my house, like right here. And what's creepy is that my closet is right beside my bathroom. It's not like directly across, but it's beside. So when I was going to the washroom, I heard the door creaking open, but I couldn't see it creaking open because the layout in my house in real life is different than the one in my dream in the hotel. But it was that boy sitting with his eyes closed in my actual closet, like in my bedroom over there. Dressed the same way, looks the same way. I don't know what it means. I just don't understand, but it's like every dream that I have of him, he's closer to home, like literally. And my dream is starting to warp into places that in real life, like my house. And it's just really bizarre. And like I'm scared that I'm gonna go to bed tonight and have like a dream where he's like probably standing right beside my bed. Like, I know they're just nightmares and they probably don't mean anything at all, but they're just so bizarre that I had to sit down and like tell you guys about it. So I would love to know what you think. Definitely comment down below. Let me know if you guys have had any reoccurring dreams. And if you have, are they nightmares? Are they good dreams? Has anything happened in real life that like correlates with the dreams? Like I want to know. So I'm briefly going to mention the sleep paralysis stories from my sister and my boyfriend just before I get into other people's stories. And I think what messes me up about sleep paralysis is that it could happen to anybody. Like maybe it hasn't happened to you, but it could, you know what I mean? Like that thought alone is just really scary. But I remember my boyfriend telling me a few years ago that he had this really, really bad episode of sleep paralysis where he was lying in his bed and he thought he woke up in the middle of the night. He was feeling thirsty, so he wanted to go get water, and that's when he realized that his body would not move. Like he was aware of the room around him and he could not get out of bed, like his body would just not move. And then from the bottom of the bed, these really creepy zombie looking creatures rose from the bottom of his bed. They kind of looked like the nurses from Silent Hill. They were dressed in those creepy nurse outfits. They had no face. They were these really skinny people, and they started crawling on top of his bed towards him, and he could not move. He could not like shoo them away or run. So he watched them get this close to his face, and then finally he was able to snap out of it. But like when he told me that story, I was just so freaked out by it. And then my sister, this happened actually not too long ago, I think a few months ago, she was sleeping in her bed and she woke up, could not move, just like my boyfriend. And at the very corner of her room, she saw this man sitting in a chair with a top hat, like dressed really formally for some reason, just sitting there on a chair in her bedroom watching her sleep. She couldn't do anything about it, she couldn't call for help, and then suddenly she was able to move again and she called my mom and I into her room and told us all about it, and we were like, Mandy, what the heck are you talking about? And then she couldn't sleep in her room for like 3 days after that. But anyways, I'm gonna get into some of the creepy stories that I found online from people. I've had 3 sleep paralysis events in my life. I saw a cat-sized shadow creature at the base of my bed, and it slowly crawled up onto my sheets and finally up to my chest. I felt uncomfortable. Another time I saw a shadow man walking around my room, disappearing behind my door. This was the scariest one I've had so far. This one was the best. I saw a couple of surreal looking penguins walking around my bedroom. It was amusing and funny. So the last one's not that scary, but I find that a lot of people have creatures climb onto their bed. Like, that's what I've read a lot for some reason. For a number of months, I would wake in the middle of the night and know there was someone lying right behind me in my bed, although I lived alone. They were so close I could feel them breathing on me, but I could not turn around or speak as I was paralyzed with fear. Eventually, I would wake up and realize that there was nobody there, but the inability to move or speak was frightening. I can't even imagine not being able to move. That must be the scariest feeling in the world. Like, your mind is awake, your mind knows what's going on, but your body just won't respond. The night after I had my second daughter, I had what people could describe as an out-of-body experience. I was lying in bed one minute, and the next I was on the ceiling with my face against it. That is super weird and creepy. In the early hours of the morning, I woke to see a woman floating down towards me from the corner of the ceiling. I was totally aware of the room and how I was lying on my back facing slightly towards my right side. I could see my friend and make out the shadows of the room and this woman coming straight towards me in a menacing way, but I could not move. I remember wanting to jump up and scream. I was petrified. I was calling out my friend's name, but she did not seem to hear me at first. Ugh, these stories are so spooky, and once again, I'm in my basement, home alone. It's great. My most recent experience was one of the most horrific sleep paralysis stories. I saw a demon standing in one corner of my room. It was speaking some sort of language that I couldn't quite make out. Other times, I see things walking towards me at lightning fast speeds, but still very slow, with their legs usually don't match their movements. It is usually a demon or someone I know who seems possessed. That's probably the scariest one to me. I don't know. Ugh, I'm getting all these weird chills. Usually the shadowy figure of a man just stands in my room and stares at me, somehow moving closer. However, the other night I opened my eyes to see him facing away, sitting on my swiveling computer chair. At first I thought I was awake and that the shadow was just my chair, until the chair slowly began rotating to face me. I could not move or yell, and sure enough, the man was sitting on it completely still, looking directly at me. That actually kind of sounds like my sister's story. But do you guys notice that every single story has them coming towards them? Like, whatever the creature is, they're getting closer and closer some way, whether that's on the bed or somewhere else in the room. That is, ooh, so creepy. Okay, we're gonna read one more because I'm pretty sure you guys get the gist of what I'm talking about. I woke up to the feeling of something sitting right next to me on the side of my bed. I thought it was my cat, so I opened my eyes to shoo him away, but nothing was there. The sunken in, weighted feeling didn't go away. I tried to go back to sleep, and that's when I saw something come into the room. It was a person made of black fire, like a shadow person, but it moved like fire. I mean, these stories are absolutely crazy. I can't even imagine being the person in that situation. Alright, so let's get into today's video. We're going to be talking about some very creepy creatures, monsters, and spirits that appear to people in their dreams or while they're sleeping. And these are creatures that have appeared to thousands and thousands of people around the world. So if you recognize anything that I'm going to be showing you or telling you, please comment down below, because maybe one of these creatures has visited you before. Because think about it, every single one of us have had nightmares before, and they're definitely never pleasant to experience. Some of us have them more than others, and the things we see in those dreams are often very different from person to person, because obviously we all have our own brains and we all think of different things. But like I said, these legends I'm going to be telling you come from all over the world, and they've appeared to so many people. Dreams are just so crazy to me. The fact that while we're sleeping, we can have literal movies in our head. Like what? And there are some people that go as far as to try to prevent nightmares from happening. I know all of you guys are familiar with dream catchers, and a lot of people use these things to shield themselves from some of the monsters I'm going to be telling you about. I've never actually owned a dream catcher myself, but I have had friends that have been obsessed with them. I had this one best friend back in elementary school who literally slept with like 35 of these on her wall above her bed. So in case you did not know the history of them, in many Native American tribes, a dream catcher is a handmade willow hoop woven to a web or literally a net. A dream catcher also includes feathers and beads. They are traditionally suspended on cradles as a form of armor and protection. The web absorbs terrible dreams at night. The feathers act like ladders, allowing the good dreams to descend on the infant or adult who is sleeping. And I have literally always thought dream catchers have looked so beautiful, and so much like time and detail is put into them. And it's so cool how this object literally can shield you from these monsters and bad dreams. So let's start talking about some of these creatures that visit you while you're sleeping. The first one is very, very well known, and that is the Sandman. Now, the Sandman actually comes from European folklore. It's typically a character in children's fables. He is said to put people to sleep and bring good dreams by sprinkling magic sand into people's eyes at night. The grit in people's eyes when they wake from sleep is supposedly the Sandman's doing. So you know, like when you wake up in the morning and you have that like goop like in this part of your eye, apparently that's because the Sandman puts sand in your eyes to give you good dreams. Now, I don't know about you guys, but someone sprinkling sand into my eyes sounds like incredibly painful. I mean, I can definitely appreciate what he's doing, you know, he's giving people some good dreams. But if I was sleeping and some dude just came in and was like,
let me just sprinkle some sand all in your eyes, that'll feel really nice for you.
I would wake up and be like, no sir, like stop, please. I would rather have nightmares than sand in my eyes. I'm just like imagining him like going into someone's room like,
are you ready for the sand? Are you ready for the sand?
So the Sandman is said to bring good dreams, so he's kind of more of a good creature that you're okay with meeting at night. But I have also heard some more evil stories about him, so I definitely prefer the good version. Alright, so next we're going to talk about a creature called the Baku. I hope I'm saying that right. And this creature is also known as the Dream Eater. It is a mythological being or spirit in Chinese and Japanese folklore, which is said to devour your nightmares. And ancient legend says that if the Baku is not satisfied after consuming the nightmare, he may also devour one's hopes and dreams. I've also heard of this other version that says that if his belly is not full after consuming your nightmare, he'll just go ahead and eat you as well. Or let's say you're not having enough nightmares for him to devour each night, he'll go ahead and devour you. So literally this creature gets its food from children's nightmares. The Baku is a beast made out of a bunch of different animals. It is typically depicted with a bear's body, an elephant's nose, a tiger's feet, an oxen tail, and rhinoceros eyes. So this Baku is just like a mishmash of all kinds of animals, and it's kind of creepy to look at. Legend has it that if you wake up from a nightmare, you can actually call out and summon Baku. It says all you have to do is repeat these words 3 times. Wow, I just put up 2 fingers for 3. 3 times. I just did that, didn't I? Okay, repeat these words 3 times. So you say, Baku-san, come eat my dream. Baku-san, come eat my dream. Baku-san, come eat my dream. And then he will literally come out of the shadows to come and eat your nightmare. And this allows the child to be able to go back to sleep peacefully. But legend also says that you have to be very careful if you decide to summon him, because if he's still hungry after eating your dreams, he will either eat you or eat all of your hopes and dreams for your future. So literally your life will be over. I feel like I would rather have my nightmares than call upon Baku. Just Just saying. And also, I just want to say, if I'm not pronouncing all these names correctly, I'm so sorry. A lot of these creatures come from all over the world, and like, I have trouble pronouncing things. You guys know this. I've been on YouTube for what, 6 years now? You know I have trouble pronouncing. I still get comments that are like,
Jessii, you said that wrong.
and I'll be like, I know. I take full responsibility for that. Okay, this next creature has a sort of similar name called the back tack. Hope I'm saying that right. And people also call this creature the sleep demon. Being depicted as a goblin-like creature, this creature is known for sitting on your chest while you sleep. So basically, he will wait until you're asleep, he'll climb up onto your chest and then give you nightmares. And if you happen to wake up while he's sitting on your chest, he'll quickly run away into the shadows so you don't see him. And then each night he'll come back and lie on your chest. He basically wants to give you nightmares so terrible that you will literally die in your sleep. And the legend says that there are certain people who are at higher risk of seeing him. And those examples I have here, and they say if you're an extremely stressed out person or you struggle to fall asleep, you are more likely to encounter him. It also says that if you usually sleep on your back, you're more likely to see him because, like I said, he likes to climb up and sit on your chest. So the legend says that if you want to avoid him, you should sleep on your side or on your belly. I feel like I never sleep on my back, so I think I'm safe. It also says that if you sleep alone, you're more likely to see him. It says that married couples rarely see him because the Baku doesn't like to be around two people. It feels more comfortable only going to appear to one person. So those are like the risk factors, if you will. Have a good night tonight. All right, next we have what's called the old hag. Many people with constant nightmares have complained about seeing an old hag standing in their room. So thousands of people around the world have complained about waking up in the middle of the night from a nightmare. They open their eyes, they see the darkness of their bedroom, and in their doorway is this bent over old hag just standing there, and then it slowly starts to walk towards them. There was this one specific story I was reading online about this woman who had terrible nightmares all the time, and every single night she would wake up and see this old bent over crooked woman walking towards her bed. This old woman would come right to the side of her bed and like lean over her, and all of her teeth would fall out all over her bed sheets. Ugh. And then there's a similar creature called the Pissadira. I'm sorry. This is a creature from Brazil, and she appears after you have a beautiful and tasty dinner. So on special occasions like Thanksgiving and Christmas, when the food is plentiful, she is most likely to attack after you've gone to bed. So basically, if you have a night of indulging, they say if you have a lot of wine, if you have a lot of food, if you're enjoying your night with family, just like at special occasions like Christmas and Thanksgiving, after your belly is full and you go to sleep, this is the most likely time she's going to appear, which is so bizarre to me. She likes full bellies. In the middle of the night after you've eaten, you'll sense that you're being watched. Other times people notice this very foul stench. So basically you're sleeping and this putrid smell fills the room. And that's when you start hearing this old lady's footsteps come towards you. And apparently she looks very similar to the old hag that I just showed you before. It says she has fiery red eyes, her nails are long and sharp and dirty, dry parts of her skin flake off. That is disgusting. She has a long crooked nose. She basically looks like a witch. Her teeth are long and sharp, and it says it's perfect for eating children. I think she's kind of similar to the witch from Hansel and Gretel, where she prefers people to be like full bellied with food, and that way when she eats you, it's a lot more tasty, which sounds gross. I'm so sorry. But yeah, apparently if you have a really great dinner, she's coming. So the medical term for sleepwalking is actually somnambulism. Did I say that right? It involves getting up and walking around while in a state of sleep. It's more common in children than adults, and sleepwalking is usually outgrown by the teen years. So most of the time you'll actually see a child sleepwalking instead of an adult, but obviously it can happen to both. Isolated incidents of sleepwalking often doesn't signal any serious problems or require treatment. However, reoccurring sleepwalking may suggest an underlying underlying sleep disorder. I just want to know why in like every picture of a person sleepwalking, they have their arms out like this as if they're a zombie. I feel like that's not realistic. I think I've sleepwalked once in my life, and I think I made a video about it a while ago, but my husband Ty has actually done it a few times in front of me. This one time, I think it was about a year ago, I watched him get out of bed at like 4 in the morning. He walked across the bedroom, opened the door, walked out into the hallway, and put his phone on the banister of the stairs. Like literally balanced it on the little banister, then turned around and walked back and got into bed. And the next morning he was like,
Jess, why is my phone out in the hallway on the banister?
and I had to tell him, and he had no memory of it. So yeah, people just do strange things while they're sleepwalking. Sleepwalking usually occurs early in the night, often 1 to 2 hours after falling asleep. You'll know a person is sleepwalking if they get out of bed and they're walking around aimlessly. They could just sit up in bed and open their eyes for a while. They may not communicate with others, and they usually don't remember the episode in the morning. But sometimes they remember what they were dreaming, if that makes sense. Sometimes a person who is sleepwalking will do routine activities like getting dressed, talking, or eating. Sometimes they'll try and drive a car, which is not good. Sometimes they'll get injured by falling down the stairs or jumping out a window. And some people even become really violent while they're sleepwalking, which isn't good. So I'm gonna tell you 3 instances of real sleepwalking stories. The first one is called the crocodiles. We're already off to a good start here. This is about a man named James Currens, and he had been a sleepwalker for most of his life, but something really scary happened to him when he was 77 years old. This incident happened in 1998. He got up and sleepwalked out of his house, his cane in one hand, and he literally walked right into a nearby pond. He woke up chest deep in the water, but was unable to get out as he had become stuck in the mud. Now, this would be terrifying for anyone waking up in the middle of a pond, not able to move. But what made the incident really frightening was that he found himself surrounded by alligators. Oh, so they're alligators, not crocodiles. Why is it called the crocodiles? Now, he actually had to use his cane to keep them at bay. So it's a really good thing that he sleepwalks with his cane with him, I guess. One of his neighbors ended up hearing him screaming, and they called the police. And using lights to scare off the alligators, the police managed to free Currens. And he escaped with only a couple cuts on his body that were really minor, so he did not get eaten, thank goodness. The next story is called Girl on a Crane. A man was walking home at 2 a.m. in Dulwich, England, when he somehow noticed something terrifying. A girl curled up on top of an inactive crane. Now, obviously, right away when he saw this, he immediately called emergency services. They were calling up to her, asking what she was doing. She wasn't answering. She was literally curled up on top of the crane. So the firemen had to climb up and then notice that she was actually asleep. And this made the ordeal even more frightening because the fireman was now afraid to wake her in case she became startled and fell. He saw that she had this cell phone in her pocket, so he took it out and managed to call her parents. They explained that their daughter, who was only 15 years old, had a problem with sleepwalking. And they said whenever she did it, all they had to do was ring her phone and it would wake her up. So they did that, the girl woke up, they took her to safety, but this is insane. She apparently had climbed 130 feet up in the air and went 40 feet across the crane. Are you kidding me? How did she not fall? And this last story is called Bugs on the Walls. There's a story of this one girl who has night terrors on the regular, and sometimes her sleepwalking combines with her nightmares. So she often wakes up in her bedroom and sees that her walls are covered in bugs. So she jumps out of bed trying to escape her room and often runs out of the house and runs down the road screaming. So people outside often think she's being like kidnapped or something, so they go over, wake her up, and she has to explain that she has this sleepwalking issue. Imagine waking up every night seeing bugs all over your walls. That would be horrible. This actually reminds me of a really creepy incident that happened to me when I was probably, I would say, 8 years old. I may have briefly mentioned this story in the past, but I went to this sleepover and there was about 12 or so girls there, and there was this one girl, we'll name her Heather, and after we had all fallen asleep, suddenly a couple of the girls woke up because we heard this humming sound. So we sat up and looked in the corner of the room, and Heather was just standing there looking at all of us. Her eyes were open and she was going like just like doing this monotone hum over and over again. And so I turned to my friend and I was like, what is she doing? Why is she standing there like that? And my friend told me that she had this issue where she would often get up in the middle of the night and stand in the corner of the room and like make a noise, either humming or like a word over and over again, or like a weird silent scream, if that makes sense. It's like when someone stands there and they're like and like no noise is really coming out, just air. My friend also explained to me that this other time at a sleepover, she went over to the fridge, opened the freezer up, and started dropping ice cubes over and over on the floor. And whenever she would drop one, she would scream so loud. And I think that was one of the first experiences I ever had with actually witnessing someone sleepwalk or doing something while they were sleeping. And like the next day we told Heather what happened and she totally owned it. She was like, yeah, I do that all the time. Sorry if it scared you. Like, it's just what I deal with. So she wasn't worried about it at all. She actually liked to hear the stories of the things that she would do in the night. But like, guys, imagine waking up at your friend's house and she's in the corner of the room like, It was like a really weird sight to see. Anyway, so guys, please comment down below if you have any creepy sleepwalking stories, if you've ever sleptwalked, or if you've witnessed someone doing it before. I just find this topic to be very interesting. Actually, even my husband Ty said that when he was a kid, he would walk into his parents' bedroom and like stand in a corner watching them. So was like standing in a corner a norm for sleepwalking or something? Because when Ty and I were first dating, he was like,
if you ever see me in the corner of your room at night, don't be afraid, I'm just sleepwalking and watching you.
I was like, oh my gosh, what are you, like Edward Cullen? Anyways, that has never happened, thank goodness. Anyway, so guys,